now we're live. Technician is showing us thumbs up. So, welcome to the first English and international Kalliomäki podcast. So, Jussi, Muurikainen, welcome.
Thank you, Tomo.
It's amazing to have you here, and we have some attendees on the LinkedIn Live. So we are very much welcoming everybody who is watching this to participate, because we want to answer exactly those questions that you guys have in mind. Isn't that right?
Yeah, happy to be trying to answer at least.
Yeah,
hopefully good questions.
And our main topics for today, as the people watching can probably guess from what we are wearing here, are going to be Ukraine. And of course, you are known as the founder of Liquido. So we're going to talk about startups for sure today.
Yeah.
But first, I'm seeing a special shirt that you have on. So just to kick things off, can you tell a little bit about what you're wearing? What is the symbol there? And show that shirt to the people watching.
Yeah.
This camera here.
Yeah, so it's basically a gift from Ukraine, but I had one person. Yeah.
Yes.
So I had one friend joining the Slush side event, the Bridge of Trust, 2 weeks ago in Helsinki.
Yeah.
And he took this with him from Ukraine. And it's actually the exact same T-shirt that Mr. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, is using in all those media conferences and so on. Really good quality of a T-shirt. My mother is artist in this fabrics, so I know something about the quality, and it's a nice gift directly from Ukraine. Yeah.
Wow, nice. We have a first question from Esa Salonen, and when I mentioned on my poll that we are going to talk about helping Ukraine and startups, he immediately asked that, are we talking about local Ukrainian startups, or are we talking about some international big corporations that are trying to use the crisis to gain some personal gains? So how would you ask about this, or tell us about this role of startups and business in the middle of a crisis?
Okay. At first, I would say there are many different angles, and you can support Ukraine in so many different ways. For instance, I was helping to have the first help center to be in Helsinki. That was helping sort of Ukrainians entering Finland. But then at the same time, you can see now mostly in my work that we are getting a lot of Ukrainian startups in our own deal flow. So we are getting to know them, and we are trying to help them, selecting the best ones of them. And that's sort of pure business now. Then there are a lot of good corporations that are also supporting in the rebuilding phase of Ukraine, because they need a lot of that when it starts. Actually, the war is still going on, so it's not in that sense started. But of course, there are the companies and people actually that are willing to help Ukraine understand also that when you do business with someone, you are helping as well. So it's all about different kinds of levels of support. And I think the ones that are now active in there and showing sort of that they are helping the country, then they have the best opportunities also when the war ends, and you sort of reach the trust between the countries and between the people before the end of the war. And it gives you a stronger network, trust, and all of that when it's the time for the reconstruction phase.
Exactly. So in practice, we are already starting the rebuilding phase now, because we are doing things. We are building relationships. Yeah. We are building economy. We are building startups, and all this will be present once the war is over and it's time for the actual rebuilding in that traditional sense.
Yes, good point. And this is actually something that we need different kinds of organizations to join, different kinds of levels of people. We need public sector, we need private sector, we need small companies, we need bigger companies, we need technology providers, we need investors, all of those. And this is actually something that for the audience as well, that if you want to join and learn more about these kind of things, you can send me a direct message. This is more like a hobby for me because I'm a serial entrepreneur. It's not something that I do as my like 24/7 thing. It's holidays, but it comes from my heart. So it's sort of now matching also with my working role.
Yeah, let's get to how you got into this help Ukraine. Let's get to that story in just a bit, but just a thought that came to my mind is that when we're talking about these startups and business and innovative people, in my mind, this is really the strength of the West. It's the strength of Europe. And when we are comparing free democracies to authoritarian countries such as Russia, which are really resource-driven, this innovation is at the core of our strength. It decides even wars.
Yeah, and then if you think about Ukraine as an example, they're one of the only countries in top 10 list of unicorn founders, from which countries comes the best unicorns in the startup field as well, from Israel and from Ukraine. And the rest, maybe from Europe, Germany, which is bigger, and then just like this China and India, of course, because they're so much bigger ones. So I think Ukraine already is in a phase of having huge future opportunities, being one of the top growth centers of Europe. But we need the war to stop before we can talk about that more.
Absolutely. What is it about the Ukrainian mentality that drives this innovation and cooperation in your experience?
This was a good and bad question. I don't know. I would say in general, the country and the culture, if you have been learning more about it, it's a really beautiful country as well. They have a long history. They have a good education system. They are, for instance, very high in software developer education. They have been one of the most biggest resources for the companies outsourcing software development, for instance. But where it comes from, you need some more Ukrainians to answer that question. I don't know, but the thing that I've loved about knowing a lot of Ukrainians now is that I've got so many good friends, and I've felt that the Finnish culture and Ukrainian culture were really nearby each other before the war. To be honest, I'm as a Finnish guy didn't have this kind of an experience. I just knew some like a dozen of Ukrainians, but I didn't have any close cooperation or something. But now, since I have both Ukrainians living in Finland, but also Ukrainians living in Ukraine, a lot of business connections are there as well. So my experience is that it's really easy for us Finns to have a business with Ukrainians.
Yeah, I've noticed the same. My background is in international sales, and I have some Ukrainian business partners, and I really have got the same intuition as you. Yeah. Maybe it's something in our nation's histories, our people's histories. Maybe it has deep roots that we feel a sense of similarity.
Yeah, it's like a bit like the Estonians. We have this close feeling, and I have sensed the same with Ukrainians.
Yeah. Let's check if we have got any audience questions now, and if people haven't opened their keyboards yet, we'll get started with how you got to help Ukraine in the first place. But just a moment, I'll check it from my profile here. I'll go to my live here, and then I can see it. So, no questions yet, so let's move on and talk a little bit about the beginning. So, how did you end up helping Ukraine in the first place? What happened?
I don't know how it I know how it happened, but why did it happen? I don't know about that. I was in Portugal, Lisbon actually. I was just working there for a month. I was living in my friend's apartment. And I was actually getting a call from Finland that, hey, when the war had started, I was, of course, following a lot. I was following a lot about the news before the war started, and I knew that there was a really stressful situation. Then I was in Lisbon, and I got a call from a friend that was asking that, Jussi, day after the war started, Jussi, should we do something with this Ukrainian situation? I said immediately yes. And that is how it sort of started. And then I was also knowing some like 20 Ukrainians in my LinkedIn profiles. So I was sending them, actually this was the first day, sending them just a message that, hey, if you need any help, I can help to find a safe route to Finland as an example and so on. And then I got some replies, and then I found one family that was actually, they are living now in Finland. And I think that was part of this path of sort of having the personal emotions connected with this situation. And that's sort of how it happened.
Yeah, and what was the actual practical help that you guys got to do, and how fast were you helping as things are unraveling and the war is beginning, and how did this happen?
We used Telegram groups during those days. We got people that started to know from Finland. These are mostly Finnish Ukrainians living in Finland, or Finnish that started to connect me and these groups, and we sort of managed the whole voluntary organization in Telegram groups for each targets. For instance, there was targets for getting drones to the Ukrainian army, helmets, all of that, right from the start of the war. Then there were people in different groups finding, for instance, this help center in Helsinki, all those things. Then we had groups for getting jobs for Ukrainians, getting apartments for Ukrainians in Finland, food for Ukrainians, all of those. And they were sort of a interesting match of people from all over the Finland just finding those groups and starting to work. It was interesting, and I got a lot of new friends from that.
And for example, drones, they were of huge importance in the very beginning of the war, and even now. All the time they are on the news.
Yeah, but I have to say, in those drone groups and these army-related groups, I was mostly like going through what is happening. So I was just amazed about how people could do those things. So I wasn't that active in sort of being the guy there. I was more like helping the help center things and like humanitarian help things in the start. But I saw a lot about how people just gave their money. Even those guys that went to verkkokauppa.com, you know the story. They bought all the drones that they had there. And Andreas and Anders.
Has your mind traveled at all to some kind of future where Finland is in the place where Ukraine is right now, and Ukrainians are helping Finnish people?
Do I see that kind of
has this thought entered your mind while you're doing this? Because when I've read the news and forums, this is a thought that comes to mind to people a lot, that they are feeling like this Europeans are doing cooperation now for Ukraine, and of course we want that to be as strong as possible. But every once in a while people start to think, what if this happens in Baltics? What if this happens in Finland? And who would help us? And how would that organizing look in that kind of future? Let's call it an alternative future, for example.
Yeah, I would say that Finland has been one of the active countries, and we would get a really good support if we would need But personally, I'm thinking that what Ukraine is actually doing now, it's preventing this to happen to any other country in the Europe. And this is why they need our help now, because they help. When we help them, we help us to prevent that kind of a future. And of course, I'm sure that we would get the help from at least our European partners, but also from the voluntary organizations part, because this is something that the media doesn't talk about. So it's nice to have these kind of podcasts. That the voluntary organizations, when the war started, were there ahead, like weeks before any national level of support was there. So voluntary organizations made those amazing things from Baltics and Nordics as well to help, for instance, directly Ukrainian army. So it's amazing stories. They're not sort of shared anyone, but and I don't want to take any like credit from those stories.
Yeah, but if you think about nations, they are working as democracies, and democracies are notoriously slow to react to things. That's the one thing that I think we should develop to be better able to challenge these authoritarian countries where you can basically just do things on the drop of a hat.
Yeah.
But democracies are a bit slow unless we have had time to really build up some kind of contracts and some kind of pacts and some kind of plans, and everything needs to be like in years before anything happens. But normal people like you and I, we can just take a telegram and start to talk to other normal people.
Yeah.
Of course, it's faster.
Normal people, and
I don't know about normal, but people,
crazy people
like you and I.
But I still would say that hey, the European countries and the US, we were really fast also on the national level to get the help there as well. So and then now it's just to continue it like it was in the beginning. So I'm also sensing some kind of struggle in the European, for instance, defense tech companies, how fast they can build up the production levels and so on. So hopefully we keep up doing what we promised to do from the start to really be there.
Yeah.
Until the end of the war.
Definitely. So if somebody's listening to this now and is an engineer or entrepreneur or salesperson in Finland, let's say, how would you encourage them to help Ukraine on their own place? What can they do? Based on everything you've experienced and seen from the start of the war.
I would like to start all kinds of like business connections with Ukrainians. You have to understand that, for instance, when we had this trip to Ukraine, live the IT Arena event, was it 2 months ago? It's one of the biggest cities in Ukraine. It's like double of Helsinki size. They are living a regular, normal life there. There might be some alarms sometimes and so on, but they are having just regular business and life there. So and Ukraine is so big country. So if you compare it with Finland, it's like almost 10 times bigger. It's a big market. You can already and all the time do business with Ukrainians, even when the war is there. So it was eye-opening experience also for me to visit there during the war times. So and understanding sort of, yes, we saw like I would say hundreds of volunteer soldiers entering country when we left from Ukraine. It was amazing to see those guys coming voluntarily from different countries to the country. But anyways, the city was normal. There was maybe some bombings also there, some missile attacks like a few weeks before we were there, but mostly they are living just a peaceful life. So I would try to get Ukrainian connections, start to build businesses with them. That's a really good way to help.
Yeah, definitely. Can you tell me a little bit more about this event that you had in Lviv? What was the purpose of the event, and can you tell us some?
The wording for us Finns is so difficult. Lviv. It's like for me it's like the almost impossible word. It was Mikko-Pekka Hanski, who is a good friend of mine, was calling me last summer that, hey, since you have done some things with the Ukrainians, you might know also these Finns that would like to visit Ukraine. And we have this IT Arena event, which is sort of the slush of Eastern Europe. It's coming on September. Jussi, could you arrange some Finns to join us, and let's have a bus from Krakow to Lviv and then join the event, and let's have some kind of maybe evening together there. And this sort of escalated. And then I was organizing this side event, the Bridge of Trust, which was bridging Nordics and Baltics startup ecosystems and sort of funding partners, investors, having this idea that I would be bringing the Nordics and Baltics, the most active ones, pro-Ukraine people, investors, to this side event in Ukraine. Then we would have their Ukrainian startup ecosystem, key players, investors, startup entrepreneurs. And then we combined this all and have this really successful event in September. And it was called the Bridge of Trust. And that sort of, this is maybe the most critical thing that I want to say today, is that while we're talking about bridging of trust, if you think about doing any transactions or having any connections with people, you always need some kind of a trust side of it. Then if you're trying to get business outside of your own country, if you try to get connection, you need even more trust points, this kind of. And then the bridge of trust came to my mind. So, for instance, bridge has to be something that you want to trust. So if there is a river and there is a bridge that you don't trust, you don't want to go through that bridge. But if you can trust it, you can then have a nice trip there. And also in business, when you have some other country, you don't have any connections there. It's really difficult to build any business. So this was the sort of original idea for this event.
Did you see some interesting Ukrainian investors, Finnish businesses come together and some fruitful conversations happen?
Yes, and also direct investments, because there was, for instance, defense tech companies, founders in the event, and then we had defense tech Finnish investors there investing into those. And now it's sort of starting. So we had the second side event with the same name when it was Slush in Helsinki, and then now it's just the beginning of building those bridges of trust between those countries.
By the way, I did this poll just before we went live, and the first responders to the poll have all answered that they want us to talk about the role of business in crisis. So that's what really seems to stir people's minds. And how have you viewed this sanctions part of the war? And when the war started, EU was quite quick with the sanctions, but still there were some companies that continued to do business in Russia. And what's your message to all the businessmen who are doing business now and perhaps notice that, okay, we are still having a distributor, for example, who is selling to Russia or Russia-related countries? So
this is a good example of a question that I'm trying to have these two different tracks. Business track, the version of Liquidos founder answer, and then Jussi. So Jussi thinks that you should do nothing at the moment with Russians in any kind of cooperation before the war is ending, because they need to feel it They need to understand that something they're doing is wrong. It's not anything that they will be that happy when the history books will be written. Then, on the other hand, yes, we have opportunists that are now having these businesses. I'm not the one that comes and say like, fuck you and so on. But for me, it's like as a Finn, as we have the same history. For us, it's really easy to select the side. Really easy to select the side. So it means that for me, it's incredible to even think about someone building some business relations or having some opportunistic logistics with providing these exporting products or whatever. The first part of the answer is this. Then about overall about the doing business or what is the role of business during crisis? Was it so? That question was how was it?
About the role of business in crises.
Yeah.
That's it, plural, like crises such as this.
So I think, to be honest, I haven't been seeing a lot of business now in that traditional sense that we would have been selling something for Ukrainians as an example, or building these kind of direct business opportunities in what I have been working with. But it's more like building the business relations now before the war is ending, and then seeing, for instance, these kind of transactions that Finnish investors are investing into the startups. But mostly, like I've seen a lot of companies, a lot of privately owned companies and entrepreneurs willing to take their own part of helping Ukraine, and then maybe providing some services also, but not trying to get any business in traditional way, more like helping them. So this is what I have seen a lot. And I could mention many of them, but these entrepreneurs, normally, they are not in these podcasts. They are just putting money in, for instance. Like I know so many people that have been investing into the help of Ukraine, big sums. They never want their name into anyone.
Wow.
Yeah.
Working behind the scenes, not making a number of what they're doing, but they're doing it.
Yes, exactly. And we have these podcast faces. So.
Yes, we're the podcast faces. Somebody's got to do it. By the way, Mr. Technician, could you put the air conditioning to number 4 so we can get some more air here? I feel like the studio is a little bit hot, and we need also some more oxygen to get this CO2 out. You know, I used to work in sensors, so I know all about this parts per million.
Do you have like your internal sensory system working?
It's calibrated pretty well because I lived actually in a single room when I was a student, and I had for 1 year I had this sensor on, and I could sense how it feels when I'm alone or with 2 people or when we have 10 people in my apartment, and everybody's starting to have red cheeks and brain fog because of this CO2.
Yeah.
And that's just something I really notice nowadays.
Yeah,
so.
seems to be so. I didn't notice anything.
Yeah. So a little bit about your own background as the founder of Liquido. So tell us a little bit about Liquido. What is it? What separates it from other companies working in the startup field?
We have actually found the right way to describe sort of the category of what we are doing. It's a venture builder. That's used mostly in the US. Venture builder is something that you have venture studios, you have these VCs, venture capital companies, funds, angel investors, you have all those players, at least to mention a few. Venture builder is that kind of a category in which we are sort of directly working with the founders of the companies and helping them as sort of a co-founder when they are starting. And we're helping startups and selecting the best ones to support with this. It means that, yes, we have this background of building startups and we have like 25 portfolio companies at the moment. And we are always owners of the companies, so there's no consultancy or sort of I've been talking about like we are not a sort of company with revenues. We are more like investors that we are investing in those companies that we help and the founders that we support. And we can take like 5 companies per year. And we try to be sort of architects of those startups to help to build them right. And this is basically what we are doing.
From the very beginning that the startup is forming, we want to help them grow.
Pre-revenue.
Yes.
Pre-revenue. This is to Lifeline Ventures. Guys, they invented this. I don't know if they invented actually this saying, but at least I saw it from there, some post that it's a pre-PowerPoint phase. So it can be even a pre-PowerPoint or pre-founding the company.
Exactly.
But from there to €1 million revenue, I would say the normal area that we work. So in the early stage, we want to be the builders. We want to build.
But that's
we
when
don't
actually
like renovation.
Yeah, that's a different job. But that's when you actually, as a inventor, for example, that's when you really need. You may not even know it, but that's actually where you really need friends. Really need people who know how to do this.
Yeah, true. And then also I would say that many times we are found by the founders because we have been helping these companies to get funding. So they sort of understand that, yes, that has to be a good player because the companies get funding and we get recommendations based on this. Also successful funding rounds and so on. But more or less we are saying all to the founders that, hey, money is only like a side product here. So we want to build the best companies instead of just getting funding for them. And the founders many times think that they need only money because they have the plans. They do know how to do it, build it. So, and maybe a bit different point of view. And later when we have been doing cooperation, they maybe understand that they sort of bought us funding, but got sort of the way to how to build the business.
Yeah, can you give us some kind of example of companies? What kind of companies end up into the deal flow and become Liquida partners? So, and what separates the companies that of this multitude of companies you're choosing about 5 per year? What is the separating factor?
Many, because this sort of a mathematics type of a thing. So you have to have enough of companies, you have to have enough of sort of scoring points to get into our portfolio. And we are having maybe 30 different areas that we evaluate. So it's not just one thing or 2 things. But I would say a founder's profile is really, really big part of it. Then the market size, is it big enough? Is there some relevant business possibilities? Is it scaling the business model? These traditional basic things have to be there. Then about the industries, we are not doing gaming industry as an example, because in gaming industry, you know, this Finnish gaming industry ecosystem is really high level of an ecosystem. We don't have anything to give to that ecosystem. For instance, that or some maybe like really deep tech or like medicine development type of companies. We don't do that actively. So there's also this industry side. So early stage, whatever industry basically, if it's not gaming or medicine or something. And then it has to have this secret something, maybe IPR there as well, that can be something special and unique in the market globally, scalable, good team. And we also always tell that we want to find these companies that somehow do good for the world. It's not about it's only like health tech, or it's not only about green tech or something, but something good for the world. We have said, so basically it means that we're not that interested. I have given this example of someone who is, for instance, building some extra things for an ERP solution or something in the accounting. And yeah, it's getting something, maybe processes better or so on, but we want to get some like real stuff, like these kind of solutions that help people or make the world better in any kind of nice way.
Yeah, this is what Simon Sinek calls starting with why.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we also have the why guys in the world and how guys. So there's a example of Walt Disney and Roy Disney. And Walt Disney is the guy who says why. Why do we need a Disney corporation? Because we need magic for kids. And then you have Roy, who thinks, how do we make actually a successful company out of this, of making magic to kids' worlds?
Yeah, and that's actually something all the startup founders, many times they want to see, or we also want to see, that there is someone with a big, strong vision, maybe sales skills, that really is like the guy that goes through the wall. But then there's also good to have this COO profile of a person many times that is sort of trying to at least try to design the execution right. So many good companies, they need many qualities from the people that are working there.
That's what I was going to ask you about. So we need many kinds of people, many kinds of personalities and strengths. But what about as an investor? Because I believe many of our listeners are actually contemplating whether they should invest into startups. So you know about that view also. So what would you say to people when they are contemplating this? Who are the people? What is the right mindset that you need if you want to get into this startup scene and start investing in various startups?
Yeah, good question. And I would actually, you didn't ask it, but I would say one of the criteria is that you have to have enough of money in your personal sort of account that you can invest in startups. So it cannot be ever like the only thing you are investing in. Would be my personal opinion. Yep. But then if you have that, then you have to have also understanding of that you have to build a portfolio of maybe dozens of companies instead of just one or two. Maybe you can guess right and you can be lucky and you can get good returns from one and two, but normally it doesn't go like that. But then I would say the most critical thing is because we are talking about startup investing, it's more, many times we talk about business angels. And what is being a business angel? It's not meaning that you invest like 20K to one company and then say, good luck. Because the original idea of being a business angel is to, Kim Väisänen has said this pretty well. So one of the most famous Finnish investors, that you actually paying a ticket to be able to work for free. So that's what is business, and this is for money first, and then you are also starting to work with the company. Don't you sense that ever with us as well? But then that's one thing. So you have to, I would say it would be good if you would like working with people and helping them, because I think that's the most relevant thing here. So if you get something for the startup founder, as an example, if you get some investor to invest 20K to your company, then you might get like 50K from the help, the actual network, the actual opening up you a business or helping you with your strategy and so on and so on. And this is what we see like on a daily basis, that we find these people that are actually, we say many times that, hey, we don't actually need that money from those. But hey, they can maybe give us some money as well. But if we get that one to help us, then we are like, yeah. And that's also like Liquida's role sometimes to say that, hey, Tuomo, we want this.
This is sounds a bit like this Shark Tank and these Leijonan luolassa programs where you sometimes just want to get the right person to help you. And it might be just because of the network or the experience that that person has.
And there are different people. There are also people that are having enough of time. They might be even like they don't work anymore. They can like really put some time in on top of the investment itself. Or then we're having, of course, those vesting models for some investors that they put some money in and they are actually helping the startups and getting even more shares of the company based on sort of earned shares of the company.
I'm thinking about our listeners in LinkedIn, and I want to ask you about startups as an employer. So let's say there is a person now listening who is working in a perfectly usual small business or maybe medium-sized business, good finances, not untypical risks in the horizon, and then they get a offer from a startup. Maybe they have a connection, some friend or family member, and they're starting a startup. And how should you see the startup as in general as this normal everyday worker who gets an enticing offer? Numbers seem big and opportunities seem big, but it's really hard to view how risky this is.
Yeah, it is, and it will be difficult. And I have even been doing those mistakes in my life, to be honest. But I would say that you have to understand that, hey, this is not anything that's sort of the normal, like coming from a corporation and you have this traditional and salary comes every month and let's just work 8 hours and that's it. Or okay, nowadays even the startups, they normally don't have these long working days that they used to be maybe some years ago, but there is a healthier culture nowadays. But anyways, I would say it's an investment. It's always you don't want to go to work in a startup in which you are not getting shares of or like a relevant share of the company. Just going to get some salary, it's not the way to go to work in a startup. And of course now I'm talking about the early stage phases. Of course then if it's like I think Google is still saying that it's a startup, so there are different phases for startups as well. But if it's already having good funding and good revenues and so on, it's a bit more different. So first thing, ownership, then also understanding that, of course, then it's a huge opportunity if you believe in it, if you have the capacity to be one of the superstars of a startup, then you also get a lot of reputation from the market to be one of those superstars that was able to, instead of being in a corporation and taking that traditional annual or monthly salary and bonuses and all of that, and having never any kind of stressful situations in your work, then if you enjoy an environment when there are risks and adventure, then you want more to be in the startup. I have one more thing to add. Sorry, there's also this kind of a theory about how if you have been able to taste startups, it's difficult to go back to drinking coffee. So it's like this. What is it? theory of different stages that you porttiteoria. So
Yeah, that's the gateway drug.
yeah, so that's so high in drugs to be a startup founder. So coming back to the normal life is a bit difficult, maybe.
For sure. You have these dangerous situations and speed.
Yeah, give me more, give me more.
You're addicted when once you go there.
Yeah, exactly. You can see it from my gray hair as well.
Well, you can get that in the drinking coffee in the corporation too, but that's maybe more about some other situations there. But you don't get to be a superstar maybe in a corporation, except in the Christmas party and the local pub. But the startups, if you're there and it becomes a unicorn, okay, now you're a superstar.
But you have to understand that only like 1 out of 1,000 and is then giving you the opportunity to be one of the superstars.
But when you get this job offer, everybody is the unicorn.
Yeah, true.
We need optimism for sure.
True.
That's part of it. But maybe the background to my question is that it's easier for the entrepreneur to view it as an investment and as a risk. But as somebody who's coming from the corporate world, it can be you basically should learn investing before you
sort of, yeah.
consider it.
Then you can call me. Like,
Yeah.
I can give some advice about, for instance, how to. For instance, I had actually one discussion like this yesterday. It was from one of the partners of us. It was a question about how should I do, what kind of an agreement should I have, and so on. I was saying that, hey, yes, use this vesting model also. And these are something that what is it like? What is vesting for many people? So you can also always ask us if you need help with that.
Yeah, and about vesting and these terms that there are in startup world, I did a little poll about them too, and I'd like to ask you to clarify some of those terms.
Hey, but did you know that we have this dictionary, startup dictionary?
Really?
Liquida's own.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a Christmas present last year.
Oh, wow.
So you can find all those. This was not actually something that we planned.
No.
Yeah, but we have this dictionary. You can find startup dictionary. It's mostly like Finnish, for Finnish audience. And we decided that we will share it to sort of Christmas present also this year, the same present.
Yeah.
Maybe there is some updates of the words that we also have, but it's really good for this situation because you have a lot of like these kind of special words that you don't use anywhere else.
Yeah, and some of these terms may be used in also the corporate world. They may be, but some of these may be more like in the startup world.
Yeah, and please, if Evelina, if you're following, please share the link to our startup dictionary.
Let's get that link to the comments one way or the other.
Yeah.
But maybe we should do this like a lightning round. So you're the expert here, and I'm gonna ask you just by giving one term, and you can give like a 10-word explanation or just a couple of words explanation of this.
This is bad because we haven't been talking before.
No. This can, but if you don't, if you're unable to give the answer, we can just look at the.
But this is live. So. But hey, keep it going.
Okay, let's get going. Let's get some danger to this. So, explain hikipääoma, like sweat equity. What is this?
Okay, it's like. This is an easy one. Yeah, many times the startups actually they don't have any money to pay you in the first phases when you need some help. Then you can have these different people that still are needed to build the phase. For instance, when you are entering into a funding round later, you get people or your friends or professionals to help you, and you pay with the shares of the company. So you don't basically pay with money. They are helping you. They get share of the company. It can be like a vesting period of like 12 to 36 months. and then you have also like hybrid models that you sort of pay something and half of it you pay with the shares of the company. So they become owners of your company, but you don't have to use cash in payments.
Exactly.
In short.
Cool. That was good and short. So the next one is shareholder agreement. The guy who's sipping coffee in the corner office, he's never heard of shareholder agreement, and now it's in front of them at the table.
Actually, I was when I was starting as an entrepreneur, I was always the one that, hey, give me the papers and I will sign them, and I didn't care about the papers. Me. Nowadays, I do care about the papers. So shareholders agreement is a sort of, you can compare it with getting married to the people that are signing it, because it's an agreement in which all the owners of the company sort of say different things, that this is what we have planned here, this is what we are agreeing on. It's like almost like a Bible of the company, really relevant to be that everyone is understanding what they are signing, what kind of agreements and details there. You can also have lots of different situations. For instance, when some founders want to leave the company, what are the conditions there then? And if someone is investing, do you have these vestings included? So, for instance, if someone is investing, the founders may have like 3 years, as an example, that they have to be working for the company based on that agreement as well. So my advice for all the startup founders or people signing agreements, shareholders agreements, be careful and build them right. And we are not selling shareholders agreements because we are not a legal office here, but that's what I learned. It's a really good, important agreement for a startup or a company.
Yeah, for a company, it doesn't always go as we plan. Maybe 5 founders, and everybody's like really excited. But maybe somebody has a real catastrophe in their life, and or a great opportunity that competes with the startup or forces them to divide their time. Yeah. It's a completely different situation, and that's why we need these shareholder agreements before we find ourselves in a company.
Yeah. And agreements are also for those situations in which you have maybe a fight. So there is a strict rules that, okay, it goes like this, and you can also manage that kind of a situation. But of course, we never want to fight, but normally you don't use those. Normally you don't have to use the agreements. You just can negotiate different future opportunities for each people, but when you have the agreement there, it helps you to go through difficult situations.
Yeah, and it makes the negotiations a little bit more simple when you have this actual written paper behind you, if you need it. Yeah. So the next one, maybe someone has gone to LinkedIn and in my profile and seen that I'm actually an advisor for Liquido. So what is an advisor?
Thanks for being part of the family. It can be many different things, of course, but in this bubble, the startup bubble, advisor means that someone is helping, for instance, the portfolio company, our portfolio company, as an advisor. Advisor is not a board member. It's not so officially involved guy, but that is someone that is helping the founders with the advice they can give from different fields. It can be in marketing, it can be in R&D, it can be in funding, it can be in any field. And one of the sort of key things for Liquido's own thinking and methods is that we always try to find the best advisor for the companies. We are not actually thinking that we are any good advisors. We are just sort of architects that know these people that, hey, discuss with that guy or that guy and so on. And many times, like in the basis of what we are doing with the portfolio companies, we, for instance, had a kick-off day before yesterday, and with one new company. And one of the most time we used was to first talk about the tracks. Hey, we need this kind of guy to help us understand, for instance, the industry, or go-to-market plans, or internationalization phase, or something. And when we understand that, hey, for this company, it is that we need people in those kind of tracks, then we start shortlisting the people from our network, or even not from our network, because it might not be there yet, but we are searching for and trying to find the right guys. And given this advisor of Liquido is, I guess it's a pretty big honor for you as well, because we are not giving that to that many people.
Definitely.
Was it a good answer at all?
That was a very good answer,
Okay.
Especially the last part.
Okay.
And so we have these three-letter combinations here. By the way, I didn't mention it, but shareholder agreement in Finnish is called osakassopimus, if you've heard that word, but not the English one.
Yeah.
You can now connect the words. So this is maybe more about the marketing side, but the CAC, customer acquisition cost. What's happening here?
Who found those words? Is it like you?
I
Okay.
did some digging.
Yes, okay. Yeah, it's mostly used in SaaS world, so software as a service world, but it can be used in everywhere. But basically, you are having these different metric basics in SaaS companies. For instance, you want to, for instance, see that what is the actual customer acquisition cost compared with the customer lifetime value, which is meaning that if I'm paying you like 10 euros, could you become my customer? Yeah, 10 euros. You said yes, 10 euros was the customer acquisition cost. But it's a combination of all the marketing and sales efforts that the companies do to get one client. So it's an average sum of money used to get one new customer. And in SaaS world, it's really critical to understand that if you have, well, for instance, you try to get 1,000 new customers, you have to understand how much money you have to spend to get those 1,000, and what is the, for instance, the investment sort of compared with the lifetime value of the customer. Meaning that if they are, for instance, using your software solution on monthly based MRR based for 3 years, and then it means an average lifetime value is that, and then you sort of know the sum, the total sum, and then you compare it with the sum of money needed to get new customers. So, for instance, if the sum needed more, you need more sum to spend on the acquisition costs compared with the lifetime value, then it's not a good business. And investors are many times sort of watching these metrics and also other metrics, but still, I don't know if I.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. Okay. And this is something that the marketing-focused people or entrepreneurs who are maybe starting, especially if they're starting like web shops or these kind of things, those guys from LinkedIn really work in that world.
Yeah.
So we are getting to the end of this live, and we need to do another in some part of the future.
Yeah.
But today we have talked about Ukraine, helping Ukraine. This is especially you working as a private citizen, private person.
Yeah.
And then we've talked about this startup world where you are the founder of Liquido and you know how this world works. You're the friend of founders in the startup world. So regarding these two topics, what would you give as some final words of the podcast to people who are listening to this? Maybe they're LinkedIn people or our international friends. Give us some some greetings regarding these two important topics that we discussed today.
Yeah. And how to sort of understand the combination of this. I would say there are plenty of different ways to be part of it. If you want to be somehow, for instance, following Ukraine, following the rebuilding phase of Ukraine, follow me. If you want to be part of, for instance, investing into Ukraine or Ukrainian startup ecosystems, you can ask me. If you want to be advisor in any or portfolio companies, you can ask me. But now I'm sort of seeing that in the first stage, for instance, like 1.5 years of the voluntary work was doing nothing with my own work. But as an explanation of the whole story here is that first I was doing this voluntary thing, then people asked me to join the different kind of members of startup competitions in, for instance, judging what is the best and so on. And then it became more nearby my world at IT Arena and then Slush, our own side event there. So I think that the thing that I would like you to think and learn from this kind of an experience is that actually don't think too much. If you have this kind of a situation that you have to act, like it was for me when the war started, I had to act. It was not any strategy.
Yeah.
It was like if it comes from your heart, do it. And then you might end up into a situation that you would go like, hey, it was actually beneficial for myself as well. So, but you don't select those things with your heart. You cannot, in the same discussion, discuss about any kind of like strategic, opportunistic things. You have to do it from your heart. Then it might happen that it's sometimes paying off. That was my personal learning also from this.
Yeah, that's a good experience to leave to our followers. So if somebody has not followed you yet, they can find you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Of course, you can find liquider.vc on the internet. Do you have any other social media or web places where people could follow you?
Of course, Instagram you can follow me, but there are mostly mushroom pictures and fish pictures.
Musta torvisieni.
Yeah. So yeah, you can follow me also on Facebook. Actually, it's not possible, but yeah, LinkedIn is the best.
Yeah.
For I'm mostly sharing the relevant things there. So and yeah, that's it. We are active there.
LinkedIn is great.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm doing these podcasts now as LinkedIn Lives.
Yeah.
So this is great. We can integrate the whole thing. Everybody's being very positive in LinkedIn. Everybody's building stuff there. We're being creative. So big thank you to everybody in LinkedIn who has participated with us over the period that we have been there. It's going to be an interesting journey, even with the podcast, when this starts to build up. So
Tuomo might not know, but I was once asking all the LinkedIn people from Finland who was the first in Finland. And I found, like, was it fourth or something was in the list. It's a huge work some years ago. And I've been, I was thinking that I have to be in the top, was it 50 or 30 or something? I don't remember, but I was also in like top 100 or something. And if you want someday to, for instance, as a content to your channel, to find the first ones from LinkedIn, I have the list because I was getting a lot of people to give them their date of becoming a LinkedIn member.
Wow, I want to see that list.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jussi, for coming. great to finally have this. We had to cancel a couple times, so it was awesome that
some event management.
Yes. So it's great that you took the time and we managed to do this. Let's do this again in the future. Thanks to everybody watching, and let's close this with these words. So thank you.
Thanks.